Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Callender. I'm the host of the More Sugar podcast, and we are episode number 2 into my series titled Big Conversations. Approaching my 50th birthday, I decided to have conversations regarding things that I consider to be big topics. And so I reached out to a couple of people who had stories that stuck out to me online over the course of the years, and just so happened three out of the 4 people I went to high school with. So I think we're all turning 50, if I'm not mistaken. And Nakia, uh, we've been friends since high school. And when I say friends, not that we hang out for drinks, but we're friends. And so I recently was made aware of Nakia had was dealing with cancer via her Instagram. And so I wanted to have a conversation with her about that. So without further ado, Nakia.
Yes, me, Nakia. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast. It is an honor to share my journey. Um, yeah, we want to start.
Well, what I didn't know was what type of cancer were you dealing with?
Hodgkin lymphoma.
I have not. Can you explain that?
So it is enlarging of the lymph nodes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes when you go to the doctors, right, and you have your annual physical and they're checking your neck, I used to think they were like just checking for like your thyroids or something, but they're also like feeling lymph nodes to see if they're enlarged. They can feel them in your neck, but then also on a PET scan, you can see them, the enlargement through a PET scan.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that it was diagnosed for me, um, I had been losing weight, right? But I was already on a health journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gotten to a point where I was good with my weight, but then I started losing even more weight. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not right. And I didn't have an appetite. So I
Mm-hmm.
went to my primary care and she's like, oh, you're just going through seasonal depression. And I'm like, but in that moment, I just ran with it, right? Because some
Right.
stuff was going on in my life,
Right.
but yet I'm a foodie and happy, sad, excited, mad, I'm eating, right? So I didn't
Right.
think that that was it. So I didn't take the medication she had prescribed for me, but I still was still left with, lack of eating unanswered. But just
So you didn't have an appetite, or was you just eating and still losing weight?
no, I wasn't even having an appetite. Like my favorite foods, I would go like I love Doritos, couldn't eat Doritos, love me some Chick-fil-A, wings. I would eat and take a bite and then not want any more. And that was just so unusual for me.
Right.
But again, I couldn't think of anything because I for sure wasn't thinking I was sick, right?
Right.
But just kept on going, and it wasn't until so that was maybe in February, and then in it was literally in July. I was home in Jersey, went to the house music festival, and then left New Jersey on a Monday. Wednesday, I'm in the ER because I was having severe abdominal pain, which if it didn't, I was also vomiting. If I would have had to just the pain alone, I would have just dealt with it because we always just deal with pain, right? Like
Right.
I had
Yeah.
bad periods back in the day, so that abdominal pain wasn't really anything earth shattering for me. I would just pop a pill and go lay down and put some heat to it or but the vomiting was something different because again, I wasn't eating, right? So I just kept vomiting that bile, like just the
Yeah.
water.
Yeah. 'Cause
So
nothing was on
that
your stomach.
huh, say again.
Because nothing was on your stomach.
Exactly.
Right.
So that was scary for me because I'm like, can like what's making me do this? So it I literally threw up every 15 minutes for an hour and my girlfriend was like, you need to go to the ER. And even still, I wasn't trying to go. I was just going to wait it out. But she checked on me again because she said call the ambulance. And I used to work for a health insurance company. They ain't paying for an ambulance, so I was not.
So it is an expensive ride.
Exactly.
I've called them
So
a couple
yeah,
times.
I was like, nah, I'm gonna just wait it out. Then she called me back again and was like, I'm telling you, you just need to go because this isn't right. So I went and I called my other friend and she met me. Well, actually, I'm sorry, she picked me up and took me to the emergency room. And we were there from 8 o'clock at night. It gave me something for the meds, for the pain. So I was on like morphine drip actually. And then
It was that bad?
yeah, it was that bad. Like it had progressively gotten worse from when it first started happening that day up until me finally going to the ER. And they gave me something for the nausea and vomiting. And then they did a series of tests. But then at 4 a.m., the doctor came in and he said, Ms. Palmer, you have lymphoma and we're going to admit you.
So wait a
Um,
minute. Okay. Like he doesn't ease into it.
Not at all. So yeah, we could have a whole nother topic about this healthcare system. Because
What
he
kind of
said it.
bedside manner is that? We
Listen,
need to,
I didn't even know what lymphoma meant either. And he said, and so the nurse will be in to make the arrangements. And he left. And so me and my friend, her name is Donna. She is the dearest and nearest to me. We look at each other like, what? Because it's 4 a.m. I'm on pain pills, and we've been here for 8+ hours now. So she looks at me, I look at her, and I'm like, what's lymphoma? She's like, I don't know. So now we Googling it. Mind you, we in the
he
hospital.
left you to Google. We
Exactly.
gotta find out his name because I need to. He has what
None.
hospital was it? He has horrible bedside manner.
I'm not gonna put them on blast in this moment
We gonna talk about it when we get offline
for
because
sure. So yeah, we looked it up, and I looked up lymphoma, and the first thing that came up was cancer, and I'm like, what? And we just kind of like sat in silence for a long time because she damn sure ain't know what to say to me. I
right.
didn't know what to say. Yeah, it was just a complete shock. And
So did the nurse come in and eat and with a little more tact?
a little, but not enough for, how it all happened to begin with. For the doctor just leaving me like that, it already like stung. So it wasn't even like she could really smooth it over, but she was sympathetic, but still didn't go into detail about it. However, I learned after the fact when I was admitted, doctors really don't know 100% because they still didn't give me a confirmed diagnosis until almost a week later. They just
So
kept saying
how long did you stay?
I was in the hospital for 7 days, and it wasn't until that last day that the oncologist finally said, yes, this is, and there are actually two types of lymphoma. One is Hodgkin and one is non-Hodgkin, and I had Hodgkin. I don't want to get all into too much about the difference between the two because, to be honest with you, we already talked about me being an overthinker. I didn't do a lot of research on it. I just
Right.
knew I had it and that I was going to learn about what to do and how to do it. And I just left it in God's hands at that point. If I would have read every pamphlet and every,
Yeah.
you know, word,
To your own
Google
devices.
search, all the things would have had me thinking I was going to die in that moment. And
So
um,
what was that 7 days like?
it was awful because it was a small, dark room. People kept coming in, taking different tests. Again, telling me this is the treatment plan, but we're not sure yet. They had to wait to get the official results back. I had PET scan, I had a bone scan. They literally had to take a piece of bone out of my back. So many different tests that I had, but again, until they got the official results, they could only say this is what we think it is. And so I did have a great team. They came in every day. Now their bedside manner was amazing. My oncologist and all of the other different specialties that had come in as a result, therapists, nutritionists,
Now you're
anybody.
away from home. You're still in New Jersey.
No, I was back in North Carolina at this
Okay, you
point.
came back home.
I
Okay,
had left New Jersey on Monday, and then this happened on Wednesday. So
gotcha.
like I was trying to say how fast it all just took a turn. Like I had no clue that when I was in New Jersey, that 2 days later I would be in the ER.
So now is this type of cancer like other cancers where they give it like different levels, like one
Yes,
stages?
yes. I was a stage 4. However, I asked the doctor, okay, does stage 4 mean I had it for longer than somebody with stage 1? And she couldn't ever give me a definitive answer, but that knowing the stage helped them to know the treatment plan. And I did
Okay.
try to look that part up myself, and there is no like definitive way of knowing how long you've had it based on the stages or not.
So aside from Donna, how long Donna stayed in the hospital with you for a couple hours?
She stayed with me until I was discharged and the ambulance came because nobody could ride with me. She met me there, and then I built a community of family. I won't even say friends. I built a community of family here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been here for 12 years now. And so, but it's crazy, right? My circle, my core circle, they all from up top.
Yeah, that's
It
it.
just, I have some friends that live here, but the
Yeah,
people who are my core,
your
they
village,
all from up
your
top.
people.
So, but yeah, I have a friend, a dear friend. She's actually from Patterson, New Jersey. Her and her husbands are pastors, and so they're like my spiritual parents, if you will. They came. A friend of a friend introduced me to my friend Nia. She stayed with me every night in the hospital, except for one night. 5 nights she stayed with me. I didn't even ask. She just
That's what I'm
stayed.
talking about.
Like I didn't even you don't even know sometimes what to ask for, right? When people
Yeah,
say, "What do you need?" It's really hard to answer that question sometimes cuz you don't
and
know
people
until
shouldn't
you
ask
know.
unless they're prepared to
That
do
part,
what you want.
that
But
part.
when you go ask somebody what they need, you got to be prepared for them to tell you. So the fact,
Absolutely.
and I think I talk about that sometimes. It's nothing you could give nobody but your presence.
Exactly.
So your
Even when
friend,
you
you
say how are you, or you have to be, I think I posted that on my Facebook. Stop and listen. Like don't
Mhm.
say how are you and you start talking or you keep on going.
hijack you. People will hijack
They
your
will.
trauma. People will hijack your everything and turn it. Well, I remember I had this, or well, this happened to me. Even in the comments, sometimes it's like, can I have my own issue?
Agreed.
But that's dope because not too many people, especially newly, a lot of people, I try to explain to them that day ones don't mean anything compared to a relationship that you built that's genuine.
Yeah. And
So
it's harder when you are an adult because I moved down here at 39. So like making friends as a grown woman
yeah,
is different. And I was working from home at the time. So even harder, right? To make friends if it's not at work at that age. But at some point I did have a job here in North Carolina. So then I did make a few, work relationships. But
you kind of answered my first two questions because the first question I was going to ask was after a diagnosis like that, who's the first person that you go to? But you you had people walking into battle with you when you find out something like that. And so you had
yes,
like your tribe already there. And the second question you said about your
it's
spiritual
10
parents
o'clock.
because my next question was going to be does something like this shake your faith? Because I can stub my toe and I'm fall out and God, why have you forsaken me? So I
I
can't
have been through some
imagine.
things prior, to this diagnosis. And so it prepared me for this time. Like, I didn't question it at all. Not a why me, not please, I've been so good, or I trust you, this, that. Like, it was just like, okay, God, that's why all that other stuff happened, just for this exact moment. And that's where I was with it. Like, okay, he got me through all these other things that I just couldn't ever see myself getting out of. And now this happened. And so I'm like, all right, I see you. Let's go.
So that's like unshakable faith.
Absolutely. Because
And
if
that's
I hadn't
because
seen him, if I didn't get through those other things with God, I would not have been prepared for this. Because I would have never seen, like, we read these stories in the Bible, we hear other people's testimonies, but until we have our own testimony, sometimes we don't trust and we don't believe because that was somebody else. But
right.
now I know him for myself. I've seen him work.
Come on. That's 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 dope because I have to remind myself constantly of how good God is. And sometimes I tell myself, when has he ever let you down? Even going into a situation, I try to keep myself grounded in that and reminded. And I think that you and I talked prior to recording, and we talked about you not experiencing the loss that I have, and I think that's what's shaking my faith over the years. So every time I'm always expecting, even though I trust him, but one side I trust God, but this also all this shit has happened. So I'm not saying that he's not good, but sometimes, man, it's hard for me. Like, you remember the Golden Child, the movie with Eddie Murphy,
Yes.
and the Golden Child. They said in order for his powers to work, he has to be surrounded by good, like all the time. That's me. I have to constantly remind myself, like every day, of what God has brought me through, whether it's gospel music, or whether it's making sure I'm inside somebody's church, or whether it's making sure I'm doing a good deed, or whether I'm reading the word. Because I think that's where the devil looks for in with me, is he wants me to doubt that God will come through, because I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because going through so much sadness, when you experience joy, it's hard to imagine, like, man, I can't believe that this has actually happened to me. The good things, anyway.
Okay.
So, where did you get that foundation from?
Um, so I've always had that foundation from, my grandmother and taking me to church and all the things, right? But again, was just probably going through what other people said and not me experiencing it for myself. But then once I started to practice yoga, like, God met me on the mat.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a beautiful thing because in that time or during this time when I'm on the mat, we just have the most amazing conversations. So much is revealed to me through him, that I never experienced for all of this time. And I think God was trying to, get my attention in so many different ways, so many different times. But then he's like, oh, all right, let me use this yoga to get to her. And so ever since I started my yoga practice, I've fostered this amazing relationship with God that I've never had before. And so it's allowed me to trust him in ways that I didn't before. It's allowed me to talk to him in ways that I haven't before. We just have this like amazing little love thing going on that
Right.
sometimes it's like
Try
you can't even
yoga.
put it in words.
I'm about to take some of your yoga classes,
Absolutely.
because I
Absolutely.
need to
Like,
move. I need to move my body. Have you ever heard? I've heard when it comes to yoga and Christianity. Now, uh, do you subscribe to what they say? How is not of God, or it opens up some type of portal or something like that?
I absolutely do not.
But have
Um,
you heard that though?
I've heard it. I've
Okay.
heard so many things that for me, and I always talk about what is your intention behind it. So
Right.
for me, if my intention is to be closer to God, to learn to be more self-aware, to be able to sit in the uncomfortable, to find stillness. How is that like not of God?
I think that we could go on and on about Christianity and how.
Exactly. So again, me having my own relationship, and because I had a cousin say, you be chanting, cuz you be saying all that stuff, and I'm like, I do. She's like, how you know you not it's not satanic or whatever. I'm like, because I know what I'm saying. Like when we chant, it's it's called Sanskrit, and so it's just another language, right? And so I used to say, when you singing these Cardi B songs and she rapping in Spanish, you saying it, you don't know what she's saying, right? But you saying it. And
Right.
so with Sanskrit, it's all about the vibrations and how the words make you feel in your body. So sometimes you don't even have to understand it in order to feel it.
So, how do you know when you're hearing from God? What does His voice sound like to you?
So I haven't specifically heard his voice. I think God shows up for me in other people affirming something that I already, wanted to do. And
Hmm.
when it's something that I really don't want to do, but I know I should, like doing sharing my story. I didn't
Hmm.
want to do that, but I knew that I should. And so I know that that was God telling me to do that.
Right.
Not that I'm so private, but I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what any of that looked like. I had never been um really sick before. I've really been blessed in that regard, right? So to put all of this out there, I was like, okay, God, this is what you want me to do? All right, I'll do it.
You think He used you for somebody else?
100%. I was chosen. I was chosen to go through this. When I tell you, um, I've been using my endlessly evolving platform on Instagram, and never has it given me this much what's the word? People responding and asking questions and DMs and things like that. And I
Hmm.
wasn't looking for likes or extra followers or anything like that. Just to share it and just hope that somebody else would be blessed by it, because I believe that when we are waiting on a blessing, we need to be a blessing to somebody else. So if me sharing my story could bless somebody else while I was waiting for whatever answers I needed or whatever lesson I needed to come of this, then let me just go ahead and just do whatever it is God is telling me to do. And that was what He told me to do. And women who were going through cancer themselves, men whose wives had been through it, a similar experience, and just people in general, not just about cancer, right? I didn't, when you even asked me to do this, I'm like, I don't want to make this be about cancer, right?
Right.
For me, I think the message that God wanted me to tell everyone is that you could still have joy in the midst of whatever is going on in your life. No matter if all hell is breaking loose all around, you could still have joy, and I'll never leave you. So that is for cancer, for that stub toe you was talking about, for
Yeah.
whatever it may be, that you could still have joy in the midst of whatever it is. You always make me laugh.
Well, you know what? It's a refreshingly unexpected conversation because I I kind of figured that the way you move through it, that there was something bigger to your story than cancer, but it was so big and so bright. I'm like, how do I approach to have a conversation?
Just the way you did.
because you move through it like so effortlessly. And it's so good to know that that was just faith, sheer faith, because you rarely see people. They'll make up five different reasons why instead of giving God the glory when He says that I'll get you through this. But to get through it, yeah, the whole idea is to say what you're saying. If it wasn't for God, I don't
And
know
and
what else I
and,
would do.
and the other part of that, right? A lot of times people, I'm sorry, not a lot of times. It has been my experience that when somebody is going through something, they they wait for people to like show up for them, right? Or like, she didn't call me or you didn't da 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 da. But I knew that nobody could know how to show up for me, right? Like people, you just don't know sometimes, right? So I wanted to always like include people. I asked you for what I needed. Show up, DM, call me,
Right? You
FaceTime
sure
me,
did.
right? Because that I knew that that was what I needed, but you wouldn't know that that was what I needed unless I said it. And so I always wanted to be intentional about I need y'all. And I think that that was also a big part of, I look forward to people reaching out to me on those chemo days that was 6+ hours. I look forward to, and it was random people, right? Like Facebook, it really is your family, right? But it
Yes,
was people
yes.
who I hadn't probably ever talked to before, but
And
they
that's what's so dope about it. I was
absolutely.
because I reached, I was like, and the funny thing is, I was like, I don't know why I'm calling because this one time I listen to God, and sometimes I'll be like, when I hear God, and it's me and him having a conversation is like, it's he my homie because that's the only way I can relate to him. I don't want him to seem like this big, unreachable guy or this parent that punishes you when you do wrong. He's like my homie that's like, yo, you got this guy. Like he peps. So he's like, man, I was like, bro, like no, like what do I say to her? Like she going through some real life shit. What you want me to say?
Like just seeing your face and then you just everything just made it
Yeah, and
like,
I'm glad that I did listen to him because sometimes he
yes,
be having me go out on a limb, and then when it work out, I come back. I'm like, oh, he's like, I told you.
exactly. When we listen to him, it always work out. Maybe not the
Oh,
way we expected it, but it does.
it does. So how long is chemo?
So it was for 6 rounds, and you have 2 sessions per round. So it should take 6 months. It took me a little longer because at one point I started having trouble breathing and I had to go home with an oxygen tank. And it was like, huh? Okay, but still, okay, God, I'm gonna put this on, but I didn't even have to, I didn't need the oxygen, right? Because they also gave me steroids. So I literally gained 30 pounds in a month from the steroids. So that's something that I wasn't expecting, but it helped me breathe better being on this medication. So I had to push back. We had to stop one of my treatments until they got my breathing under control. Because I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be finished before we bring in the new year, but it didn't happen until January 10th. So I had to add on an extra 2 weeks.
So what is that anxiety like going home with the oxygen tank? How do you cope and deal with because are you still can you still do yoga while you're doing the chemo or you like don't have any strength?
So yeah, definitely. If you take a class, you'll understand more that yoga is not just about the poses. And so those poses are called asana, but breath work is yoga, meditation is yoga. So even if I never got on the mat again, I could still practice yoga because I practice mindfulness and being in silence and breath work. So those are also different forms of yoga that because to your point, yes, sometimes I was so tired that I physically couldn't even get out the bed. But again, thankfully with that medication, my breathing quickly got under control.
So you just sit with yourself sometimes alone and take slow breaths. You
or
have
I stand up and I plant my feet to get grounded. So unless I'm going outside to get grounded and connect with the earth, but even in my house, in my kitchen, while I'm washing dishes, just planting my feet and just standing just for a moment and just breathe could
mm,
just change my whole nervous system, bring me to a sense of peace and calmness. And I didn't even do not one pose,
just breathing.
just breathing.
And you're certified to teach that now, right?
I am.
So what does
I
that look like
am.
for your future? Is that like you think that that's something that like everybody has a purpose aside from their regular job they do? What do
I
you think your
believe
your
that
purpose is?
my purpose is to serve, right? And one of the ways is through yoga, specifically for people of color.
Mm,
We like maybe you won't go to therapy, right? But you will practice yoga because yoga has so many different limbs, is what it's called, that can help you in ways um that if you went to therapy, because it's a lot of inner self work, right? And so
mm-hmm,
that's what you do in therapy. Like you looking inside at yourself as to why you do the things you do, why you feel the way you feel.
mm-hmm.
And when you spend this time with yourself through your yoga practice, it's the same as going to therapy for me. And that's what
Okay.
I would like to bring to our community, like this sense of self-awareness, self-reflection, letting your ego go. It's not about you. Like none of this about us at all. It's all about God. But so many people are self-absorbed. And it took me to learn yoga to let my ego go and learn that it's way bigger than me.
So you think that sometimes it's about people actually being hurt from things, emotional damage that's been done to them that they just can't let go. When you say that it's not about them, so it's hard to tell somebody in their pain that it's not about them. Because, for example, if we talking about Salima, she's saying that you know the emotional damage that's been done to her, that therapy didn't even work for her. So I was saying to myself, how is it? How is a way? What is a way that she can be helped instead of just uh, thinking that she has to accept this pain forever? She says, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm gonna let it go." But how do you get to somebody who has like so much inner pain that you have to like which like vomiting. Like you gotta, it has to literally, it has to physically, its energies have to physically exit your body.
Let's see. So I'm blessed that I have not been in that space to understand at all,
Right.
what Salima has experienced and is still experiencing. But what I do know and what I can say is that through my yoga practice, there have been things that have happened in my life that were hard for me to deal with and understand why. Um, but I think that me constantly thinking about it or asking myself why or dwelling on it causes me even more suffering
Mm-hmm.
than. And so when I don't want to suffer anymore, I have to let those things go. So for me, that's what it is, the letting go, so that I'm not suffering anymore.
Right. So because you, when they first come to you and said it's stage 4, stage 4 means we got to start treatment like yesterday. So there's no opportunity for. I see some people that have bouts with cancer, and depending on what stage it is, their thing is, oh, I'm gonna try like a raw diet, or to see if diet can change the course of the way this is going. So if it wasn't, if your situation, so it's a dire situation, like we got to start this like right now, would diet change and the way you eating, would that have been an option for you as opposed to chemo, as people
But
call it Western medicine?
so an old friend of mine, I actually went with him to Tijuana, Mexico, because he has a blood cancer, and he had been being treated by Western medicine and then decided to go this holistic route. So I
Mm-hmm.
had already witnessed that, right? Like these doctors like spent 3 hours just doing a eval when we only get 10 minutes, right? For your annual physical, you get 10 minutes, but they spent 3 hours from top to bottom asking every single question. And then he was on this treatment plan, right? But lymphoma, Hodgkin lymphoma, is not as aggressive as a blood cancer or a prostate cancer or even breast cancer for that matter. And I was confident in my medical team in that moment because, like you said, it all happened so fast.
Right.
um that I went with that. And I'm still learning about the holistic approach to things because I do believe that we can eat ourselves healthy or not, or and remove things from our diets. So I do believe that. But I didn't have enough information at the time to
Right.
even say I'm gonna go this route as opposed to doing exactly what the treatment plan that my doctor presented to me.
So what it so your friend, he does he go to Tijuana all the time for his treatments, or is he
I'm not sure if he has continued to go, but he was going for a minute and then has been in a remission for a significant, it's been about 4 years, and he's been in remission.
and he's still eating like?
Well, he was already a vegan, so maybe if that's what we want to talk about,
Mhm.
vegan versus non. Um, Again, I don't have enough information because yeah, I like chicken and I like steak. So but again, it's something that I don't do often, right? Because I feel like everything in moderation.
Mhm.
But somebody else could tell you something differently. But for me right now, what works for me is what works for me. And I'm not like ODing on any one specific food that I feel like I need to, switch up and do something different.
Now this question, well, you basically like answered every question with like a effortless conversation. But I was doing some reading, and I read somewhere that um we should stop referring to being diagnosed with cancer as a battle or a fight, because those words are indicative of that there needing to be a winner, and sometimes people die. So that does that mean like you lost, or like you didn't fight hard enough because you someone lost the battle? So in that same article that I read, the author said that um, we should refer to it as a journey. So did you feel like you was in a fight, or did it feel like a journey, a battle or a fight, or did it feel like a more or less of a journey?
Definitely a journey. And to anyone who may have um, passed on as a result, I believe that was God's will. And so, like me going through this was His will for my life. And the outcome was that I am in remission now. So, with Hodgkin lymphoma, you are considered in remission until 5 years of being cancer free. Then I'm sorry, 5 years of a clear PET scan, and then they say you're cancer free. So right now, this day, I'm in remission until 5 years from now.
So how often do
Um,
you have to get checked?
so for the first year, it's every 3 months, and like literally, I go on Wednesday for my first PET scan since I rung the bell. And then it'll be 3 months after that. And then like the next year is like twice a year. And then it decreases to like once a year.
So now, so you have the yoga, and what is the other thing that you just became certified in?
Sound healing. And
How does
I'm
that
so in
work?
love. Say
I was
again.
reading about it. It sounds like from the sound, you just release energy from your body. Is that how it works?
So the sound, whether it's a singing bowl, a drum, a chime, whatever the instrument you choose, because even our voices are instruments, and when you use it, it gives off this energy that's able to resonate throughout your body and allows you to just have this sense of peace and calmness that you normally would need to. There are other ways, to come to reach this peace and calmness, but in this way you don't have to do anything but just sit here and receive.
So if I wanted to do that, how do I know what are the signs of a reputable place?
Hmm.
So I don't want to be walking into nobody and they got a Tupperware bowl trying charging me
I've
$50
never been
to make
asked that
sound.
question. Hmm. So I'm not sure if there is an answer to that, but I think doing your research on the school, if it's a school, or the person, if they're giving like a private event. So real quick, like I ordered singing bowls, and they have to be at a certain frequency. And
Hmm.
there's like a tuner app that you can use to check that, and I thought that they were at the wrong frequency. And I'm like, oh, I need to take these back. And so I had someone say, nobody will know. And I'm like, but I know. And how could I have people showing up thinking that, this is the
Right.
frequency for calmness? And that's not what they're receiving. So now when everybody leaves and they still feeling the same way they came in, like I'm a
Yeah.
fraud, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Technically.
but my integrity wouldn't even allow me to do something like that. But to know that there's somebody who was like, "Girl, use them bowls, they ain't gonna know."
I'm gonna
Like
know.
what?
Is Reiki? Am I saying it right? Reiki healing is that this
Reiki,
Reiki?
Reiki,
Reiki. What
yeah.
is Reiki healing?
So I have not taken any classes or done anything with Reiki, but to my understanding, they are able to channel in, if you will, to know like in areas of your life that are that is blockage. And so there's this system that we have called the chakra system. So it
Hmm.
goes from your root to your crown. And
Hmm.
so somehow with Reiki, they're able to tell where it's like overactive or underactive. But I'm not sure, that's like a gift that they have to be able to, but also you can be trained in Reiki. So, but I think you have to already have this gift, and then the training just enhances what's already in you.
Hmm.
But I have never had a Reiki reading and have not furthered my knowledge into it other than what I just said.
You think
And
that
that could be
dance is
wrong.
you think that dance is too close to because that's like technically like laying hands basically is what you're saying, right?
But God said we could heal ourselves, right? That we
Yeah,
could lay hands on
true,
ourselves. So at
true.
first I was
Yeah,
thinking the same way that you just said.
right.
But again, this whole yoga thing brings me, I never read the word like that before, like ever, until these past like 4 or 5 years of my life. I just listened to what my pastor said, listened to what my grandma and my auntie said. But now I'm reading for myself. And I read that. And I know, don't ask me what scriptures and everything. But
Well, like you said, it was preparing you for what you had to go through now. So now you
exactly.
understand why you had to go through what you had to go through.
Yes.
Wow. Do you ever think about I don't want to say writing a book, but putting your journey more of like did you save any of those videos of everybody calling and
Yes, I have them. Um, what I thought about, so at one point, like sometimes when you're practicing yoga, whether it's through asana poses or meditation, and then that chakra that we talked about, the third eye, it has to do with intuition. And then when I was like practicing all the time for a long time, like we're supposed to do, and what's crazy, right? So in yoga, there's something called the Yoga Sutras. And so one of the sutras says all the time for a long time, right? And I'm like, all the time for a long time, like prayer, like the same thing, like it's all the same, right? So
mm-hmm.
but anyway, I at one point started writing poetry. Mind you, never ever tapped into that before, but somehow I would just whatever I was feeling, whatever thoughts I was going through, I would write a poem about it. And so I have a phone full of poetry. I can't say a book. I got
I use the
a
notepad on my phone a
phone
lot
full
too.
of poetry. So that's something that I've thought about. But yeah, I like to talk more. So I don't know if I want to write a book per se, but I'm just open to sharing. And I'm a mentor for yoga teachers in training or upcoming yoga teachers. So anytime I can share my story, my journey, I do. Um, yeah, I just want
So
to
how many hours do you have to do to become a certified yoga instructor?
200
200 hours of yoga or
of yoga teacher training. So you learn, like I said, it's different. There are 8 limbs to yoga. So
mhm.
you learn about all of the 8 limbs. You do a lot of the, again, it's called asanas, but that's the poses that you see people doing on the mat. We learn about that. But we also learn about all of the other limbs as well. And then you can go on to be to receive your 300-hour certification, which I've done as well. So I'm 500 hours certified, and I have a certification in sound healing.
Was there ever a time that you thought that you wasn't gonna survive this?
Never,
Never.
never
Never. That's not how my God works, huh?
at all.
I'm
I
sick
died
in
from
faith.
something else before. I yeah, it never. I'm gonna
So I
just
had
say that.
I had a question that said if cancer was a person, what would you say to them? You probably say you ain't got nothing on me.
So I read that question when you sent it to me, and I was thinking, what would I say? Right, that was the one question that I had pondered on of all the questions. Right, that seemed
Right.
like the easiest one. Right, but I
Not
was like,
really.
I said, yeah, I wouldn't have said anything because I didn't have nothing to say to cancer. Like I never had a conversation the whole time. I always was talking to God.
Like stepping over him like that. Like Allen Iverson did in that game when he stepped over that guy. That's cancer. I'm
Exactly.
stepping. Wow. That's so
Exactly.
that's so inspiring. But what about if you could see that doctor again? What would you say to him?
Listen, I mean, again, we can have a whole other conversation about our healthcare system because I was struggling with going back to my primary care doctor because that's the person who I was mad at, right? Because
For
I
not
felt
catching
like
it.
she should have known, right? But
Right.
so I asked my oncologist, and she's like, she is she made the best decision that she could with the information that was presented to her. You presented as a, up to that point, healthy female, and the symptoms, right, for Hodgkin lymphoma. night sweats, um, um, loss of appetite, and something else that could be menopause,
Yeah, I
right?
was about
Could
to say
be
we just was talking about menopause, and that's like I was about to say.
exactly.
She said, "Wait, one more, and that's menopause."
Exactly. So I had to believe that my primary care doctor, that yeah, that was the furthest thing from her mind because of my age and the things that we experience at this age that she wasn't thinking that at the time.
Do you,
Um
do you think
yeah,
this have something to do with people of color? Do you have a black doctor? You think that didn't matter?
I do have a black doctor.
Okay,
So that hasn't been my experience with
okay,
women of color, but I have friends that have definitely experienced issues with doctors that are not of color and telling them that that's not what they're feeling. Like, how can you ever tell somebody
right,
what they're feeling, right?
right.
Or not ordering a certain test. But you have to, that's one thing I can say. You have to be your own advocate. Like, you
Yes.
have to be. Um, and sometimes, though, you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes,
That's
what does
good.
that
You don't know
mean?
what you. Let me write that down. Go ahead. You don't know what you don't know.
With the head roll.
You don't know what you don't know until you don't know it.
So being an advocate, right? But what else would I have asked my doctor to do when I first presented to her with loss of appetite and loss of weight? I don't know what else I should have made her do in that moment.
Because it sounds like so many things.
Correct.
So you can't say to her, "Hey, check for diabetes." Sounds like diabetes. Could be a little bit of high blood pressure. I had gosh, I don't want to do what I'm saying that other people do in hijacking. It was I think it was maybe '93. So I was out of it's like out of high school in between college, and I went for a routine Pap smear, and my doctor came back and said to me that the your Pap smear the cells were abnormal, and so I guess that means that they were getting ready to change into cancerous cells, and so he said you need a cone biopsy. Of course, this young Mandy, maybe I was like 21. A cone biopsy is where I guess where I'm not gonna say I guess where they go in and do the surgery and they scrape out the irregular cells. They put them over under the lab to see if they're cancerous. And I think he did get it all obviously. Um, but I just think about women and going for their regular checkups. I know we have not necessarily in our class, but there was also Rafia, who had breast cancer, and it's just and not just that. There's so many other diseases like we was talking about. It could be diabetes or it could be high blood pressure. How we need to go and make sure we get checked, and I'm not even going to limit it to people of color or women, but we as people need to make sure because the health system, like you said, you have to be an advocate for yourself because the health system is not geared to benefit us. It's geared to make them money.
Right.
And before that, we need to eat better. I know I've been trying. We talked when we decided to do the recording. We talked about getting older and going through menopause, and the things that help and what's helped me is not putting nothing in my mouth at all. And fasting is what has been doing it for me, but I don't do it enough. Like you said, some things are just like I want a steak.
Through my yoga practice, I have learned to eat when I'm hungry, right? And living in the South, everybody, it feels like we always doing stuff around food. We going out to eat or we going to somebody's house and we
Birthday
going out to eat at
celebrations,
eight
yeah.
o'clock. I'm not hungry at 8 o'clock. So either I'm not going or I'm not gonna eat. Like I that is one thing that I do not do anymore. Eat just to be eaten. And that has helped a lot because I think we do that way more than not. Eat just because everybody else is eating. I just ate. So I don't need to eat at 8 p.m.
What made you move to North Carolina away from your family?
Yeah, right. Because wherever you go, there you are. So I thought I was moving away from all the things that I wanted to leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
But it still goes with you. Um, um, yeah, I wanted something different. I didn't know what it was. We were always having a lot of snow, so I know that was one thing I did want to get out of the snow. And I had visited North Carolina in March, and I was going to a barbecue. I'm like, what? So the weather definitely was something that played a factor, but ultimately, I was running. I was running from myself. I thought moving somewhere up because I lived in New Jersey my whole life. I had never been any. I traveled, but never lived anywhere else. And I just thought being somewhere else, I would just leave Nakia behind. But she came with me to North Carolina, and then I was forced to deal with me. But even for a long time being here, I didn't deal with me. It wasn't until I broke my ankle and I had no choice but to sit still is when
Mm.
I truly started to get to know Nakia Lorraine
And you
Palmer.
broke your ankle in North Carolina.
I did during COVID, being bored.
Ooh, COVID sat everybody down in all different types of ways.
Yes.
I still say, and I don't want to offend anybody because I did lose my brother in COVID. I still think COVID was the best thing that happened to, aside from all the deaths, the
Yeah.
fact that people had to sit with themselves and deal with themselves. It was the best thing. If we could do that again without the death and without the disease, to where the country and everything could just come to a halt, where everybody, it's like a reset, where everybody can just get back to what is, um I don't want to say normal, but a reset where everybody gets to start something new. Do you think that you would have handled it, the diagnosis, the same if you would have been in New Jersey?
No. Because if I was still the same person, absolutely it would not have been the same. Who I am today is even me being a yoga teacher. I never saw myself being a yoga teacher, like ever. So yeah, no, it would not have been the same at all.
So when is your birthday?
November
So
4th.
you got a whole another year before you turn 50.
Well, it's this year.
You well, it seems like we just left November, so you got to
Exactly.
go
But
through the
yes,
whole, do the whole. You have plans.
I don't. So not sadly enough, but I feel like in this moment, I'm I don't want to say the word tested, but God is still telling me to trust. Because through my chemo experience, I didn't really, aside from that breathing issue, really didn't go through much, right? But there are after effects of chemo.
Okay.
And I'm dealing with neuropathy in my hands and in my feet. I'm being sometimes a little bit more fatigued than I was before. I'm dealing with some um they call it chemo brain, but again, some of this stuff I'm like, is it chemo, is it menopause, is it just because I'm about to be 50?
Yeah.
So it could be a plethora of things. But I say all that to say I haven't made any plans that far out. I was thinking about a cruise and inviting all of y'all, everybody who was on, everybody could come. So
That's dope. I'm
yeah.
bringing Jax if you write me. He goes if that's some other issues I have. I can't let him out of my sight. I'm dealing with that anxiety as a parent. So right now, when you think about 10th grade, do you remember high school?
Sometimes.
Sometimes you remember some of the years.
Yes. Or some of the times. Angela, you remember Angela. Of course you do. Everybody knows Angela. She remembers everything. So I go to her and say, Angela, what happened that time? And she will tell me.
Okay, so well outside of high school, I would say if 17-year-old Nakia,
Okay.
if you think back to her, to 17-year-old Nakia, if there's something you could tell 17-year-old Nakia, give her some advice, something she was insecure about, you tell her it's gonna be okay, or something she did wrong, you tell her not to do that, or something you say you did good. If you could say something to 17-year-old Nakia.
So many things that could start up totally new conversations. And this may sound like a cliche, but love yourself. Like, I think I was looking for love from everybody except for me, whether it was guys, my mom, my
Mm-hmm.
sister, my family. I was never looking within. Always wanted it from everybody else and doing whatever they wanted, so that whole people pleasing thing could
Mm-hmm.
come into this whole conversation. But I'm going to just say, yeah, love yourself.
Love yourself. Do you remember me in high school?
Mm-hmm.
If you could say something to 17-year-old Mandy, what would you say?
You're going to be way softer when you get older.
I needed to hear that. That's a good one. You're gonna be way softer when you get older.
Way softer.
Way softer.
And
That's a
it's
good.
beautiful.
It is.
I'm
That's
not
good.
gonna say I was scared of you because you weren't like scary, but I never would have thought we would kick it like this. That we, yeah, just it's just different. It feels amazing. Like, I'm just so grateful that you asked me to be here, to
I'm so
have this
grateful that you said
conversation with
yeah.
you.
I like to create to spaces where this conversation was so refreshing because like you said, I'm kind of upset with myself that I kind of cliched it to cancer because there's so many other things that I want to talk to you about. So I want to bring you back if you're if you're willing, like after my birthday and after I think about um the stuff that I want to talk to you about. But there's so you opened the door for so many questions, and that's just um for my own personal curiosity and understanding about things that I want to do. That's gonna make me softer because I need to be. Uh, Being soft made me will make me too vulnerable to feelings at that age. But I realized that I need that now to be a parent, and sometimes that rough exterior comes through because um, of so much loss that I've had, and it turns into my fear turns into anger.
Okay.
So it because anger it's easy to be angry than afraid for me personally, and sometimes that comes across if like for example if Jax is jumping constantly or running or jumping in the pool and I'm telling him not to do it, but he's 8, he's going to do it anyway.
Right.
But the fear of something happening to him turns into anger because he's not listening and something does happen to him. Excuse me, no one wants to say as he's hurting, holding his broken arm, I told you so. But
Right.
because I had the fear of that happening, it turned into anger. And so I don't sometimes because you said what got me baffled, what I need to talk to you more about is how you just trust God. Like every day I drop him off to school, I'm still like checking my phone to see if the school calling, something happened.
In
And
this situation, I trusted and I trust God. I'm not saying it's easy,
mhm.
but again, because of other things that have happened to me in the past where I didn't trust and things worked out, helped me now to trust Him that much more. But
So
it's not easy and it don't always happen. I have my moments where I panic and go through all the things, and then and not again, not that voice, but there's a presence that comes over me that says, how many times I gotta tell you to trust me? Like, what else do I have to do, or how many times do I have to show you before you can trust me without all that anxiety and worry and stress and all that? So I go through it, but my heart truly does trust.
that's that's a good it was something else I wanted to ask you. Oh, here it is. What do you want your legacy to be?
I used to struggle with that because I don't have children. I had a hysterectomy in 2018. So I used to always think, I don't have kids, so I'm not going to be able to leave a legacy.
That's
Um,
just lineage.
exactly. Right. But then I didn't truly understand, like I do now, that legacy to be.
It's okay to not know.
Yeah. I think I'm
It's like a
working on that.
purpose. You don't you know.
Well, definitely my purpose is to serve others. And so
Right.
that's what I try to do. Um, with, like I said, being a mentor, with just anytime there's an opportunity to help somebody else and that it has nothing to do with me at all. I'm not looking for anything out of it. It's just strictly because I just want to help somebody else because somebody helped me at one point in life. And this is what God has told me to do, to be a blessing to others.
So you want your legacy to be a blessing.
Yeah. Being a light in the midst of darkness. So if I could be a light to someone else, so that's what I would say. That she was a light
She was a
to a
light.
lot of people.
That's dope. Thank you. We could just sit here and smile all night, but this was an amazing podcast. I'm definitely gonna have you back. I
Okay.
text you. Gotta pick
I'll
up
be
the phone. I
waiting.
might come to Charlotte.
That would be amazing. Cause we only were like 3-4 hours away from each other.
It has to be more because I know Raleigh is 3 hours.
Oh, okay. So then it's 5.
And I'm gonna have to stay for a couple of days. We'll find something to get
Come
into. Some
on.
yoga.
Yoga, absolutely.
I gotta get enough
Meditation,
money
breath
for a
work.
camera crew or somebody to follow us around and
Okay.
have a conversation. We're gonna do some yoga and some
I got a
sound baths.
guy. I
You
got
got
a
a guy?
guy. I've
You
been
got
waiting
a
to
guy.
say that.
I think I'm gonna do that. After I take my son on vacation. I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go do stuff and get a guy and have a camera crew and say that this is what I did year 50, not just for my 50th birthday, but year 50.
I
All the
love it.
things that I'm gonna do year 50, and I'm gonna start off in Charlotte, North Carolina, with some yoga and a sound bath.
Yes.
Nakia, thank you. You blessed me tonight. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.